Well, I guess it's time. I've been putting off this day due to how much psychological pain it put me through to research this, due to the mountains of books I had to read, i.e. Britannica, but I suppose I can hide no longer. So let's talk about Akbar. Akbar's story started when his wasteful father Humayun was in hiding from Sher Shah, the leader of the Suri Empire, in 1542. In 1545, Sher Shah died, but Humayun couldn't regain his throne until 1555, which is more proof that he's incompetent and serves no purpose. He died in 1556 and Akbar took the throne. Something important to focus on is that Humayun barely had any influence when he died, so when he died there was both political and economic disarray. Several different provinces and kingdoms began to form under other people, and Akbar barely had any land when he came to power. So the question is, how did he manage to become the great ruler that we now know? The answer comes in two different forms: his conquests and his values. First off, his conquests. Akbar conquered land all throughout India due to his incredible military prowess and understanding of tactics. Before Akbar conquered an area, he would go to the area's ruler and offer them a deal. He would allow them to keep their land as long as they paid taxes to him, supplied troops, and accepted him as their emperor. If the area agreed, Akbar would go on his way, but if they disagreed, he would conquer them and kill all their inhabitants. This seems like a fairly shitty deal for the villagers, but it worked, so who am I to comment? This tactic worked well for most of the areas that Akbar conquered, even the Rajputs, which were the main opposition to most of the other regimes in India around that time. Another reason why the Rajputs cooperated was because of the respect and rank they were given within the Mughal Empire. The Rajputs were given the ranks of general and provincial governors, and were allowed to keep their land, so they were generally satiated. The second distinct part of Akbar's reign was how he handled the melting pot of religions in the empire. The first thing to note is how Akbar went ahead and abolished certain discriminatory laws against people who followed other religions than Islam. An example of this was the jizya tax, which was an extra tax put on non-Muslims. It's a bit embarrassing when a Mughal emperor has better views about different religions than a president in the 21st century, and has better fashion sense due to not covering himself in Cheeto dust. The second main part of this was how he accepted other religions and incorporated them into their empire. He made it so his court was also a center for art and music and open discussions of religion. He was so accepting that when Christian missionaries came to convert him, they thought he was already on the verge of converting due to his openness. He also created the style known as Mughal architecture by combining some signature aspects of other religions' architecture. There are two parts of Akbar's personal life that I should mention: Akbar's wives and Beerub. First of all, Akbar's wives. Before I get to this, I would just like to say that researching for this bit was absolute hell. All the quote-unquote sources are basically just historical fanfics. The first time I looked for potential sources, the first thing that came up was whether Jola was Akbar's one true love, and if he ever loved again after her. It was basically like reading crappy Wattpad for hours. Never say I do nothing for you. Anyways, tangent over. Akbar's marriages were usually matrimonial alliances that actually helped ease tensions, unlike most matrimonial alliances, like, I don't know, a particular couple in France in 1789. The second main relationship in Akbar's life was Beerub. Beerub was an advisor for Akbar and was part of the 9 Jewels, the 9 members of Akbar's court. Akbar treasured Beerub far more than the others, and therefore there are several different stories about Akbar and Beerub going through shenanigans. A good example of this is the Pot of Wit. Basically, Akbar is embodying his inner teenager due to him telling Beerub to leave the empire and now feeling lonely without Beerub. He decides to send a message to every village telling them to fill a pot with wit, and if they couldn't, they should fill it with diamonds and gold. I don't get his logic, but okay, I guess. Each village couldn't fill it with wit, so they had to pay Akbar in precious jewels. Am I the only person who sees parallels to the Aunt Becky scandal? They couldn't fill the pot with wit, so they had to give money instead. Anyways, the message finally reached the village that Beerub was staying at, and the village members were freaking out due to being unable to pay the price of the expensive jewels. However, Beerub gave a solution to the wit part, which the town just skipped over. He grew a watermelon inside the jar, to the point where the watermelon was stuck inside the jar, and he couldn't remove it without breaking the jar. Babur told Akbar to go and remove the quote-unquote wit without breaking the jar. And then the story ends. I don't understand it either. In conclusion, Akbar was the best ruler of the Mughal Empire by a long shot. His revolutionary policies absolutely wrecked the competition, and his conquering power was amazing. I didn't really know how to end this, so I guess that's it. Akbar and Beerub definitely dated, and no one can convince me otherwise.